Listen, every avoidant relationship has a final destination, and whether you realize it or not, you've got only two choices. You can stay trapped in a cycle of emotional starvation, constantly chasing crumbs of love, or you can reclaim your power, step up, and choose yourself. The truth is, life doesn't change until you do. Avoidance will pull back, test you, and try to keep you hooked by giving less, but the moment you stop feeding that cycle, everything shifts. This isn't about them, it's about you deciding, do you keep playing small in someone else's broken pattern, or do you ride into the life and love you truly deserve? Every avoidant relationship eventually reaches a breaking point, whether you see it coming or not. At the beginning, it may feel magnetic, even intoxicating, because avoidants know how to draw you in just enough to make you believe there's something special. They show flashes of affection, moments of vulnerability, and glimpses of connection that keep you hooked. But the pattern soon reveals itself. They start to withdraw, creating distance where there should be closeness. They keep one foot in and one foot out, always reminding you in subtle ways that you can never fully count on them. This cycle builds tension, leaving you questioning yourself, wondering why the connection that felt so alive now feels so empty. As time passes, you begin to see that avoidant relationships are built on instability. One moment they're warm, the next they're cold. One day they reach out, the next they disappear. You're left riding emotional waves that drain your energy and erode your self-worth. This is not a relationship moving forward. It's one stuck in a loop. You keep thinking that maybe if you love harder, if you give more, if you prove your worth, things will change. But the harder you try, the further they retreat. The avoidant thrives on control, and their power grows every time you accept less than what you deserve. The final ending of every avoidant relationship is never smooth because it forces a confrontation with truth. You start to realize that what you've been chasing isn't love, it's approval. It's the hope that one day they'll wake up and finally see your value. But here's the reality. Avoidants rarely change unless they choose to face themselves, and you cannot carry that responsibility for them. So the relationship drags toward one of two outcomes. Either you continue to stay, sacrificing your needs, your boundaries, and your joy, or you face the discomfort of walking away to reclaim yourself. There is no middle ground that leads to fulfillment. When an avoidant relationship reaches its breaking point, the pain is not just about them pulling away. The deeper pain is realizing how much of yourself you have abandoned along the way. You see the nights you spent worrying, the energy you poured into trying to fix them, the dreams you put on hold because you were too busy managing their distance. This recognition hurts because it reveals the cost of staying, but it also plants a seed of awakening. You start to question, if this relationship requires me to shrink myself, to silence my needs, to accept half love, then what am I really fighting for? That's why every avoidant relationship ends in either pain or growth. If you choose to stay, the pain compounds over time, leaving you emptier, more anxious, and more disconnected from who you truly are. You keep waiting for scraps of affection to feed your heart, but those scraps never satisfy. If you choose to leave, the pain is still real, but it is the pain of release, the pain of breaking an old pattern that no longer serves you. And unlike the pain of staying, this pain leads somewhere new. It clears the space for healing, for self-respect, for the possibility of a love that feels safe and mutual. The cycle of every avoidant relationship carries within it the lesson that you cannot control or save another person. You cannot make someone give what they are unwilling to give. What you can do is decide how long you're willing to live in the uncertainty, how much of yourself you're willing to lose in pursuit of someone who resists closeness. At the end, the relationship always confronts you with a choice. Continue investing in a pattern that drains you, or step into the discomfort of change and trust that freedom lies on the other side. You either stay trapped or you break free. That's the ultimate truth about avoidant relationships, and the decision doesn't come from them, it comes from you. When you're with someone avoidant, you're constantly caught in a push-pull cycle. They withdraw, you chase. They give you a little bit of attention, and suddenly you feel relief, so you hold on tighter, hoping to keep the connection alive. But that hope is the trap. It convinces you that maybe if you do more, give more, compromise more, they'll finally show up the way you need them to. Deep down, though, you know the cycle never changes, and so the choice becomes crystal clear: remain in the loop of pain or break free and reclaim your power. Staying trapped feels familiar, and that's why so many people unconsciously choose it. The human brain is wired to seek certainty, even if that certainty is suffering. You know how it feels to wait for their texts, to analyze their silence, to replay every little gesture in your mind. You've built a routine around their inconsistency, and part of you clings to the idea that if you just hold on long enough, they'll transform. That belief keeps you hooked because your nervous system has been conditioned to respond to scarcity, to crave the love that comes in drops instead of the love that should flow freely. Staying trapped doesn't just steal your time, it steals your self-worth. You begin to normalize the emotional starvation, telling yourself this is what love is. But love is not starvation. Love is not walking on eggshells. Love is not settling for breadcrumbs when you deserve the feast. Breaking free is terrifying because it means stepping into the unknown. It means letting go of the illusion that they will one day wake up and meet you where you are. It means admitting that no matter how much potential you see, no matter how much you've invested, the relationship is draining your soul instead of fueling it. But freedom always feels terrifying at first. Every breakthrough feels like a breakdown before it becomes liberation. And this is where your real power is tested. Will you choose the comfort of the cage, or will you step into the uncertainty of freedom? The moment you decide to break free, you begin to reclaim your identity. You stop defining yourself through their approval or their lack of it. You stop waiting for a message that validates your worth. Instead, you begin to anchor your value in yourself. And this is not just a mental shift. It's emotional, physical, spiritual. You'll feel the withdrawal because avoidant relationships operate like an addiction. The highs are intoxicating, the lows are devastating, and the brain craves that next hit of validation. Breaking free feels like detox. Your mind tells you to go back, to check in, to see if they care, but every time you resist, you build a new muscle, the muscle of self-respect. It's not easy. You'll have moments where you want to negotiate with yourself, moments where you wonder if walking away was too extreme. But here's the reality. Avoiding pain is what kept you trapped, and now the only way out is to walk through it. Pain becomes your teacher, not your prison. That heartbreak, that emptiness, that ache you feel when you pull away, it's the fire that forges you into someone stronger, someone unshakable, someone who no longer accepts less than they deserve. When you stay trapped, your world shrinks, your confidence erodes, you start to doubt your instincts, your needs, your desires. But when you break free, your world expands again. You rediscover passions you put aside, you reconnect with people who truly care. You feel your energy return, and suddenly the idea of love doesn't feel like desperation anymore. It feels like abundance, like possibility, like something that empowers you instead of empties you. The avoidant thrives on control. But the moment you step away, you break that control. You disrupt the pattern. They may try to pull you back with crumbs, with half-efforts, with just enough attention to remind you of what you've been missing. But when you've decided to break free, those tactics lose their power. You stop interpreting their minimal effort as love, and you start seeing it for what it is: fear, avoidance, limitation. And the more you see it clearly, the less power it has over you. Breaking free isn't just about leaving someone. It's about choosing yourself at a deeper level than you ever have before. It's about saying, I will not sacrifice my soul for someone else's comfort. It's about rewriting the story you've been living and realizing that you are not the supporting character in someone else's drama. You are the author of your own destiny. The choice may feel impossible in the beginning, but once you commit, it becomes the most empowering decision of your life. The less you give, the more they chase, but it's an illusion. At first glance, it almost feels like a secret weapon in relationships with avoidant partners. You've noticed it, haven't you, when you stop pouring your time, energy, and affection into someone who constantly withholds theirs, they suddenly start to move toward you. They send a message, they show up with attention, they act like they care. It looks like progress, it feels like they're finally waking up to your value. But beneath that surface reaction lies the real truth. It's not genuine love or commitment that pulls them back, it's the fear of losing control. Avoidants thrive in the push and pull dynamic. They pull away, you chase, and the game continues. But the moment you stop feeding that dynamic, the balance shifts. They feel the absence of your pursuit. They feel the silence where once there was your constant reassurance. And because they're wired to equate closeness with loss of freedom, your sudden withdrawal makes them feel that something is slipping out of their hands. That's why they come closer. It's not because they've transformed or realized you're the love of their life. It's simply the trigger of scarcity when something they assumed would always be there suddenly isn't. This is where so many people get stuck. You mistake the chase for change. You tell yourself, finally, they see me. Finally, they want me. Finally, they're choosing to step up. But what really happened is much more shallow. They just noticed the shift in energy, and they're reacting to it out of fear, not out of love. And here's the danger if you fall for it. If you interpret their renewed attention as a breakthrough, you end up right back in the cycle. You start giving again. You lean back into nurturing the connection, only to discover that their old avoidant patterns return the moment they feel safe that you're invested once more. Think about how exhausting that cycle is. 1 week, they're cold, distant, unavailable. You pull back in order to protect yourself, and suddenly they're curious again. They check in. They sprinkle crumbs of attention. They may even say things that sound like promises. And then, once they sense you're back in the game, they retreat again. It's a never-ending loop designed not out of conscious cruelty, but out of their own fear of intimacy. And if you keep mistaking the chase for genuine connection, you'll end up stuck in that loop indefinitely, hoping that this time will be different. This illusion is powerful because it feeds directly into your deepest desires. When you love someone, when you've invested in them, you want to believe that their chasing means growth. You want to believe that it's the turning point, that all the waiting, the hurting, and the compromising were worth it. That's why it hooks you so easily, but real growth doesn't look like someone moving toward you only when you stop giving. Real growth looks like consistency, emotional presence, and a willingness to face intimacy head on, not run from it. When you stop giving, what you're really doing is breaking the pattern. You're disrupting the cycle that allows the avoidant to maintain control. That's why they come closer. It's not about love, it's about losing their grip on the dynamic. The illusion is thinking that this temporary pursuit equals real change. If you fall into that illusion, you're training yourself to respond to breadcrumbs while starving for the feast of true connection. And here's the most important part. Once you see the illusion for what it is, you can't unsee it. You begin to recognize every little gesture for what it really means. That unexpected text after days of silence, it's not love, it's an ego check. That sudden interest in how you're doing after weeks of distance. It's not intimacy, it's the fear of losing their emotional safety net. The illusion crumbles the moment you realize their actions are not driven by devotion, but by discomfort at losing control. This is why the strategy of giving less, while it may provoke short-term results, will never create the kind of love you deserve. Because real love isn't about manipulation or pulling back to make someone chase. Real love is about two people who show up fully, consistently, and without fear of being swallowed by closeness. The avoidance chase when you withdraw is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. It's a temporary performance, not a transformation. Once you see that, everything changes. You stop being impressed by the chase. You stop interpreting the illusion as progress. And most importantly, you stop pouring your heart into a dynamic that can never give you the stability, intimacy, and joy that you're craving deep down. The illusion is seductive, but the truth will always set you free. The less you give, the more they may chase. But it will never be the love you're searching for. Power comes when you stop playing their game. In every avoidant relationship, the pattern is predictable. At first, there's attraction, chemistry, and connection that feels undeniable. But slowly, the avoidant begins to pull back, creating distance and withholding emotional intimacy. This push and pull dynamic is what keeps so many people trapped, because it triggers fear of loss and awakens the need to chase after what feels like slipping away. The avoidant thrives on this imbalance, consciously or unconsciously, because it gives them control. But here's the truth: the game only works as long as you keep playing. When you stop feeding into their behavior, the dynamic begins to collapse. An avoidant relies on you to respond exactly the way they expect, with pursuit, with overgiving, with trying harder to prove your worth. That's the fuel that keeps the cycle alive. The moment you choose to withhold that fuel, when you stop chasing, explaining, or begging for connection, everything changes. This isn't about manipulation or trying to make them change. It's about stepping out of the rigged system entirely. It's choosing not to participate in a game that was never designed to serve you in the first place. This shift is powerful because it turns the spotlight back onto you. Instead of being consumed by their actions, their silence, or their mixed signals, you reclaim your energy. You stop measuring your value through the crumbs they offer and begin to ask a deeper question: why am I accepting this in the first place? The avoidance no longer dictates your emotions because you're no longer handing over that authority. Power is not about control over them, it's about control over yourself. In that moment of reclaiming your power, you also expose the illusion of the chase. Many avoidants become more interested when you give less. But that is not love, it's scarcity. They are not suddenly transforming into an emotionally available partner. They are simply responding to the absence of your pursuit. If you mistake that reaction for true intimacy, you fall right back into the cycle. Real power is recognizing the difference, refusing to confuse their temporary attention with genuine commitment, and staying centered in your decision to value yourself. The more you pull your energy back into your own life, the less grip the avoidant has over you. What once felt like an irresistible pull begins to weaken because the hook was never love, it was the game itself. By refusing to play, you strip away their advantage and reveal the truth. Your freedom, your peace, and your self-worth were never in their hands to begin with. Your final choice in an avoidant relationship always comes down to two paths, and at its core, it's the question of whether you will abandon yourself or liberate yourself. This is not about the other person, not about fixing them, changing them, or waiting for them to suddenly become the partner you've always hoped for. It is about you deciding whether you'll continue to give away your power, your energy, your emotional health, in the hope that they'll one day value it, or whether you'll take that energy back and redirect it toward creating a life and love that truly nourishes you. Avoidants thrive in the space between distance and closeness, always keeping you just close enough to feel wanted, but never close enough to feel secure. In that tug of war, you lose yourself because you're constantly adjusting, bending, compromising, trying to become more palatable, less needy, more acceptable. For someone who has already decided they can't meet you at the depth you're asking for, the more you compromise, the further you drift from yourself, and this is the essence of self-abandonment. Self-abandonment shows up in subtle ways first. It's the moment you silence your truth because you don't want to push them away. It's when you pretend you're fine with the silence, the canceled plans, the emotional unavailability. It's the night you cry yourself to sleep but convince yourself you're just overreacting. Over time, those subtle betrayals of your own needs compound, and they shape how you see yourself. You begin to question whether your needs are too much, whether love should always feel like an uphill climb, whether you're asking for something unrealistic. The tragedy here is not that the avoidant partner cannot give you what you want, but that you start believing you don't even deserve to want it. That's the ultimate cost of self-abandonment, the erosion of your self-worth under the weight of constant rejection. But there's another path, self-liberation. This path is not easy because it requires tearing down the illusion that one day the avoidant will wake up and see your value. It means breaking free from the addictive cycle of distance and closeness, where the little crumbs of affection feel like a feast after long stretches of neglect. Liberation begins the moment you recognize that you cannot change them, but you can change you. It's when you finally stop outsourcing your happiness to someone else's unpredictable patterns and start reclaiming your own emotional sovereignty. When you stop negotiating your worth, when you stop bending your boundaries just to keep the connection alive, you begin to feel a new kind of freedom that is not dependent on how they show up. Self-liberation is not about anger or revenge. It's not about proving to them what they lost. It's about shifting the focus entirely inward and realizing that the love, attention, and presence you are begging for from them is the love you've been withholding from yourself. It's about facing the parts of you that settled, the parts of you that thought maybe if you just gave more, loved harder, waited longer, they'd finally choose you. In that confrontation with yourself, you discover the truth. It's not them you're waiting for, it's you. You're waiting for the moment you finally choose you, and when that moment comes, it's powerful. It doesn't mean you stop loving them or stop caring about them, but it does mean you stop betraying yourself for the sake of keeping their love. In self-liberation, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop over-explaining, you stop rehearsing conversations in your head, trying to find the perfect words that will make them stay. You no longer accept the cycle of hot and cold as just the way they are. Instead, you begin to honor your own needs, your own boundaries, your own standards. You begin to build a life where your emotional well-being isn't hanging on the unpredictable behavior of someone else. You begin to surround yourself with people who can meet you with the same depth, consistency, and presence that you're willing to give. That shift doesn't just heal you from this one relationship. It rewires your entire relationship with love. At the heart of this choice is a decision. Do you abandon yourself to stay in alignment with someone who can't meet you, or do you liberate yourself to live in alignment with who you truly are? Self-abandonment may feel safe in the moment because it allows you to keep the connection alive, even if it's painful and unfulfilling. But over time, it will hollow you out. You'll wake up years later and wonder why you feel so empty, why you no longer recognize yourself, why you've spent so much time waiting for love instead of experiencing it. Liberation, on the other hand, feels terrifying at first. It feels like loss, like letting go, like stepping into the unknown. But in that unknown lies everything you've been searching for: wholeness, peace, and the kind of love that doesn't require you to sacrifice your essence. Self-abandonment or self-liberation, these are the two endings of every avoidant relationship. One will keep you trapped in a cycle of pain, hoping for a change that never comes. The other will set you free, but only when you find the courage to choose yourself.